Before we get to Amy's session and her presentation, I would like to inform everyone that the University of Maryland programs, activities, and facilities are available to all without regards to race, color, sex, gender identity or expression, sexual orientation, marital status, age, national origin, political affiliation, physical or mental disability, religion, protected veteran status, genetic information, personal appearance, or any other legally protected class. We do not discriminate. And without further ado, I will pass it over to Amy.
Great. Thank you so much, Joseph. Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a warm evening in these frigid temperatures. It's been a brutal week. Hopefully, you've been able to stay warm and without too much incident. It's good to see some familiar names and faces on the call. My name is Amy Lang, and I'm the Queen Anne's County 4-H educator right now. I started my 4-H career in Charles County, so I see lots of Charles County folks on the call. I'm glad to see so many of you here. So tonight, Joseph asked if Anna and I would talk a little bit about kind of a foundational model to 4-H. Many of you have probably heard the term the 4-H thriving model. Anna is not able to be here tonight, but she and I both serve as thriving champions in the state. And that basically means that we do things like this. We do professional development to help make sure that everyone is aware of what the foundational pieces of 4-H are. It's kind of the magic sauce. You know, what is it that makes 4-H work so well, that helps young people thrive? And there's been a lot of research in recent years digging into that. You know, for many, many years, people knew 4-H worked. We knew it did this amazing work with young people and that they grew and learned all kinds of skills and positive behaviors coming out of 4-H. But there wasn't a lot of research about why. What is it that makes it work so well? And so the thriving model is an attempt to kind of explain why what we do is so amazing for young people. And I don't want to get too wrapped up in the language, but that's really what we're here to talk about tonight. And I want to hear from you all because I know as volunteers, you got into this because you're excited about the work that 4-H does and you're excited about the impact that it has on young people. And you are out there with them day in and day out. And I know that you're already doing all kinds of things that are working. And I think it's great if we can all share with each other. So that's really my goal for tonight. And I will just encourage you, if you have thoughts or questions or comments, we're a relatively small group. I don't mind at all if you raise a hand in the chat or if you unmute and let us know if you have any questions. So without further ado, we'll jump in and talk a little. Oh, I was trying to advance my screen and I'm not able to do that. So Joseph is going to help us out. And to get us started, I just wanted to share a little bit about these are 3 facts about young people in America today. And these are United States. This isn't specific to Maryland, but I will say the numbers hold pretty consistently. In Maryland, they vary by a little bit, but not a whole lot. So, what I'm going to ask you to do is take a minute, read those 3 statements on the slide. And if you would put in the chat, which of those statements you find either most interesting or most impactful, which one kind of makes you go, oh, in a good way or a bad way. So take a minute and see what pops up for you. I'll give folks just another 30 seconds or so. I'm seeing a lot of commonality in responses. All right. If you're still reading, take a minute and finish up. But I think many of you have had a minute to make it through all of those statements. I shared these three statements with you because I think it's really important for us as adults that are working with young people to know that they are, in fact, facing some significant challenges. And so we want to be aware of that. But we also, it's important to know the vital work that we're doing, the importance of what we do. Kids need programs like 4-H, and they need volunteers like you, and they need staff like Joseph and I. We all play a really critical role in meeting the needs of young people. Did anybody have a comment or a thought around any of those? I know lots of you put your answers, and I saw number one was the one that seemed to be the most impactful for many of you. Anybody have any comments they want to unmute and share?
Amy, there's a comment on the chat stating, I have seen concerning studies on the mental health of high school age students. Curious to learn how 4-H helps.
Yeah, it's a great question and a very accurate fact. Young people are struggling with mental health challenges today in really unprecedented numbers. And I saw somebody alluded to the role of COVID. Some of you alluded to the role of some of the social media. So there are a number of different reasons. Many of which could be debated, but what can't be debated is that programs like 4-H really play a critical role in providing support for those young people. And as we go through the next few slides, you'll get to see some snippets of why that is. So again, kind of looking at, okay, what do we do? And what is it that makes it work for kids? So that's what we're going to dig into if we could. Joseph, if you don't mind taking us forward one. So 4-H is grounded in this concept of quality youth development. We call it positive youth development. And I just want to kind of start off, and it can be a very jargony term that a lot of people bat around and say, oh, positive youth development. I want to ask you, what does that look like? What do you think positive youth development is? Does anyone have any thoughts around that they'd like to share? You can unmute or you can put it in the chat, whichever you're more comfortable with. Anxious Generation, great book. Yep, relationship building. Mm-hmm. So the idea of positive youth development is looking at young people. I see communication skills, habits outside of social media. Yes. It's looking at the positive assets of young people and looking at them as wonderful assets to nurture and inspire as opposed to problems to solve. Sadly, a lot of adults in America kind of look at teens and young people and they're like, oh, that generation. And so positive youth development calls for all of us to look for the positive things in those young people and help them nurture and build upon those. And the next slide will show us a picture that I love. I think it's a really great illustration of what we can do to help young people grow and thrive. So at the very bottom of this slide, you'll see the mound of soil around the flower. And we call that the developmental context. And this is where we're going to focus our energy tonight, because this is the part of the thriving model that you and I can make a difference in. when we are doing a high quality 4-H program or positive youth development program, we see those little flowers, those young people that we all love so much, we see them grow and thrive, just like this flower is doing. And so, just very briefly, I'll hit the kind of 3 categories coming up from the soil. When young people experience these great programs, they start to feel good about themselves, and they experience what we call these thriving indicators. And thriving indicators are when kids say, "Hey, I think I can do that, even if it's hard, even if it's tough." And I think that's one of the things that 4-H does really, really well. This concept of a growth mindset, we're pretty good at giving kids new challenges, new projects, new ways to extend themselves, and then supporting them through that. And they're, because of that, they're open to new challenges and discovering new things. They're hopeful, they're optimistic that they can make a difference in the world and the world can be a great place for them. So all of these things you see are called thriving indicators. Beyond that, when they experience those for a significant period of time, we start to see what we call these developmental outcomes. We see they're a little more positive about school, about what they can do in settings that they might not have been comfortable in before. They get a little more comfortable connecting with other people that maybe are a little different than them or don't have exactly the same ideas that they do. They're comfortable taking responsibility. If they break something, they're okay saying, "You know what, I did that and I'm so sorry. What can I do to make it better?" But taking that responsibility on. And then long term, short version is they bloom into that beautiful pink flower and they are happy, healthy, capable citizens. And that's really what the hope of all of our 4-H programs is that we can kind of invest in that soil so that they can grow and bloom like this flower does. And in the next slide, we're going to look at some of the elements in that soil that we can all do to try and encourage those thriving indicators and positive outcomes. And really, there are 4 elements that we can all think about infusing into some of our programming. I'm going to start all the way over here on the left with sparks. And have you guys heard the term sparks? Has that been, I guess maybe just give me a quick head nod or a quick thumbs up or something if you have heard of the thriving model and any of these elements, or if it's brand new. That'll kind of help me know how much of a background I need to give here. Okay. Wow. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm very glad I'm here to talk about this then. A lot of you say that this is new. So please, by all means, jump in if you have questions or want to dig deeper. And we can always think about in some of the future sessions, maybe we'll ask Joseph if he'll let us come back and dig a little deeper. But hopefully tonight we can give you an overview of this basic concept. So if you look at the soil there are 4 keys to a great 4-H program. And the first one is this concept of sparks, which we'll talk about in just a second. The second is belonging, helping kids feel that they are right where they belong. They're exactly where they're supposed to be, and we appreciate and we value them, and we're excited that they're there. The third one over is relationships, building those relationships where young people feel like they've got somebody they can talk to, someone they can trust and lean on if they're having challenges or concerns. And then finally, engagement, which is going to be a little bit different. And we'll talk about that toward the end of the next few slides. So let's jump in with the next slide. We're going to talk about that first element, which is sparks. Oh, Joseph, sorry. I think yeah. Thank you very much. So Sparks is this idea that young people have things they are very passionate about. They're very interested in. They get super excited about these things. And in 4-H, I don't know if you've noticed this, but we offer, I didn't grow up in 4-H. And so 4-H was new to me when I came in as an adult. And one of the things that I was so excited about, but also so overwhelmed by, was the breadth of 4-H. We offer so many different programs and content areas and projects, from everything to raising dairy cattle to raising rabbits to painting pictures and building robots. You name it, we do it. And we're able to do that because in 4-H, if we're thinking about a high quality youth development program, it doesn't matter what the content is. It matters that we are tapping into the sparks of young children. And so we offer so many different things in the hope that we're going to tap into the interests of every young person that crosses our paths. And it's great because we tap into many of those interests. But for new families that come in, I will say that is definitely a challenge to figure out, oh my goodness, where do I start? What program should I pick and where should I go? And so, I would encourage all of us to just remember that we do want to think about helping them find their sparks and building programs with all of these different offerings to meet those sparks. But remember, it could be a little overwhelming to new folks that are coming in. Joseph, if you wouldn't mind going forward one slide. So my hope is that as volunteers and folks working with young people, we will be their spark champions. We'll help them figure out what their sparks are. And I've worked with some club leaders who have said, Amy, I ask them what they're interested in and they just look at me. And it's true, they do. A lot of times if you say to a young person, what gets you so excited? What are you really passionate about? They kind of look, and by the way, adults do this too. They'll look at you and go, I don't know. And so one of the things that you'll get at the end of my presentation tonight, we've got a QR code. And if that doesn't work, Joseph and I can work on how to get it to you in a better way. But we've created a resource folder for you. And in that resource folder, you're going to find some of the graphics that we're sharing. And you're also going to find that Anna and I have created tools that we believe are very practical at helping you implement this positive youth development program. And one of the tools that you'll see are a series of what we call spark cards. And it's quick little questions that you can throw into the beginning of a meeting, or if you finish an activity early and you're waiting for the next one to start, or if you're waiting around for parents to come pick up kids, these spark cards are great ways just to kind of throw out conversation starters. And they're a little easier for kids to digest than saying, what do you want to learn about? What are you passionate about? And so those spark cards are really good. Some of the things that you might see on those spark cards are some of the questions on the bottom of this slide. What is it that you think you're really good at? What's your favorite thing to do when you have a weekend off? And or even making observations when they're in your program. If they are super excited or super focused on something, take note of that and kind of go, oh, look, it looks like you're really into robots or whatever the topic is that you're working on that day. So just thinking, how can we observe their sparks and how can we ask probing questions or expose them to new activities that maybe they didn't even know were sparks. So thinking about tapping into those, I will say one of the big things that I always encourage folks to do is particularly around October, when in our clubs, we're spending time developing the annual plan for the upcoming year. That's a great time to do some of these spark activities. Tap into the kids and say, okay, we've got a whole year ahead of us. We want to make sure that this club or this program is designed for you, that it's meeting your interests and what you want 4-H to look like for you, and then build some of those sparks into the annual plan so that those clubs really do belong to the kids and they're things that they're excited about. And that's why sometimes no club ever looks the same, because it depends on which kids are sitting in the room and which kids are sharing what they're passionate about and what you're observing about their passions. Any questions about sparks? Does that make sense? All good. Okay, then Joseph, if you'd move us along. So the second key factor in developing a positive youth development program is making sure the kids feel like they belong. We want them to feel welcome and safe. Um, so I'm gonna throw it out to you, and I'd really love to hear voices. Um, can you tell me what does it look like or feel like when youth feel like they belong? How do you know that you've got kids in your program that feel like they are right where they're supposed to be? Anybody have an experience they can share? I see Joy's in the chat. They're more willing to share and talk. Absolutely. Ask questions, being silly. Kids love to be silly. And yes, they won't be silly if they don't feel comfortable in that setting. I agree with you. Any others? Okay. Think on that. And Joseph, if you would, and they're giggling. Yep. Amount of gifts. Um, Joseph, if you'd move us forward, please. And you can click all the way through this. So, a couple of things to think about with belonging. And again, you will get a oh, right there. Perfect. There are some key elements. I love these answers that are coming into the chat. Absolutely. So you get a good sense, right? You know if a kid feels like they belong and they're safe and they're comfortable. We can all read it, read the room. And so there are, however, things that we can do to help encourage that. And I'm going to, again, throw it out to you guys. Any of you have tricks that you do to make sure the kids in your program or your class? I see somebody's giving them jobs. Sharon, I love that answer. It's so good to hear from you. Any other things that you do to make sure they feel that sense of belonging from you and from the other youth in your program? Any other tricks of the trade you use? Help younger kids. Oh, I love this one. Step back as an adult. That is so hard for a lot of adults. A lot of adults want to kind of get in, and we're kind of used to that, right? When kids are around, we get used to, oh, they need my help. They need me to do X, Y, and Z. But I love 4-H is supposed to be youth led. And so anytime. Yep. And you're right. Age matters, Courtney. Thinking about we need to help and we should help younger kids much more often than older kids. So you're absolutely right. You have to take age into account when you're thinking what can we be doing to help make sure these children feel safe and welcome. Joseph, if you'd click forward one slide. So I know you can't see this super well, but it is going to be in that resource folder that you get. This is another tool that Anna and I have developed, and it basically gives you a listing of 7 or 8 different ideas that you can do to help young people feel like they belong in your setting, whether it's a club or a program. Get them talking, get them interacting with each other, mix them up. Put them in teams or partners and don't let them always pick their team or partner. Let them do it sometimes, but sometimes they need to be brought out of that same group that they're always connecting with. I use colored popsicle sticks or I use a deck of playing cards and I'll pick out the 2s, 3s, and 4s. And all the 2s become a group, or all the yellow popsicle sticks become a group. And I kind of strategically say, oh, I'm only going to give you 4 popsicle sticks that are yellow, or the 4 2s in the deck. So creatively kind of mix them up. That helps them get to know each other. So they're not just getting to know the same kids over and over again in your program. Call them by name, get to know their names as soon as possible. Invite their thoughts and their suggestions. And, sometimes if you have a group that's really quiet or shy, tricks of the trade, I often do what we call think, pair, share. Well, I kind of ask them a question and I'll say, but I don't want any answers yet. You just think about it. And then I'll invite them to share their thought with the person sitting next to them. Or sometimes if they need to move, if they've got the wiggles, I will ask them to find another two across the room or whatever. But they share them with just one person. And then I ask the pairs to partner up with two others. So you've got a group of four, and I'll ask them to share their ideas with each other. And then we can ask the group of four if they have any thoughts they'd like to share. So it's a little less intimidating, gets them talking, gets them interacting with each other. So again, they feel like they belong, not just with you as the adult, but with the other kids in the program as well. So all kinds of tricks of the trade, and that resource is in your folder at the end as well. Questions on belonging? Thoughts on belonging? Any?
Yeah, this is Jeff Kretsch.
Hi.
And yeah, I had an interesting experience. I was just, this wasn't a 4-H event or anything. I was just taking a walk today and I was checking out our pond and it was frozen over and a bunch of kids were out there. And one side of me was pretty scared because they had, I mean, anything from 3 or 4-year-olds up to, you know, probably 9, 10, 11, playing hockey and just walking out playing on the ice, which on one hand I'd say, you know, maybe I should call emergency. But on the other hand, this is what, when I was growing up, kids used to do that all the time. And I think what I'm found interesting about 4-H is the first time having kids as officers is a fascinating thing. I want to, you know, because matter of fact, if we could speak more of, has that been going on for a long time? Is there a long history behind it, or is that relatively new? Because this is the first time I've been exposed to that, and it's very impressive. I've never seen anything quite like that in all the groups I've worked with.
Oh, neat. Well, it's good to hear. 4-H has been around since the early 1900s, so it's been around a long time. It has certainly evolved over time, but it's always, all that time, it's been focused on helping young people develop life and career skills. That's never changed. The content's changed, and what people are doing for a living has changed. When it was started, a big focus was certainly around agriculture and engineering, believe it or not. And over time, that's looked a little different. So now today, drones are being used in agriculture and computers are being used on the tractors that are being driven. And then, of course, we're exposing young people to other careers that maybe didn't exist back in the early 1900s. But the focus always has been helping them grow and become healthy, happy, functional adults with those life and career skills. And because we all 4-H programs across the country are grounded in land grant colleges, and the focus has always been research. So if we launch a program, we are tasked as educators in every county across the state. We are tasked with, okay, design the program, but you got to base it on needs. You've got to do the research and show that this is really necessary and it's going to benefit kids. And then you've got to show us that it does what you think you're doing. And so that's why sometimes people get a little tired of the surveys we do in 4-H, because we're always trying to make sure that if we are doing a program, it's doing what we think it is. And I think that's why the programs are as good as they are, because we really are constantly reflecting and then using the feedback that we get to tweak and adjust those programs. So
have they always had kids as officers? That's what I found very innovative. If that goes, does it go back to the beginning, or is that something that came on later?
I believe, as far as I know, it goes all the way back to the beginning. I think that was foundational when they started the corn clubs, or what they started in the early 1900s. And I think they were youth led. Yeah. So it is fascinating. And the kids do a great job. When you empower them, they do an amazing job. It's very fun to see them grow. Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions around that?
I have a
Will we
comment.
get the slide deck to our emails?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Will we get the slide deck to our emails?
You will. So at the end, there's going to be a QR code. And if you scan that, you can get everything will be in there, including the slides and the resources that I'm referencing. Yes.
Okay. And then for like the volunteers, if we don't quite want to like run a whole club, or we don't have like a whole skill, but we don't mind like pitching in for whatever, you know, like if there's an event and you guys need volunteers. Is that also allowed, or do we need to kind of be like running a?
Goodness, no. We need all sorts of help and we need all sorts of help. 4-H is absolutely volunteer driven. And I'm sure Joseph can talk a lot more about that in just a moment. But we love club leaders. That's great. But we also love project volunteers and activity volunteers. So no, there are all kinds of ways that you can help. And a lot of it is really dictated by your comfort level, your availability in terms of time. And so yes, we absolutely love to have folks that have a lot of time or a little time. All is very valuable and most appreciated.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Melissa, I think I saw you had a thought.
We, with belonging, our club had like a clover explosion. We have so many clovers all of a sudden. So we have to, they get a little bored during the business meeting. So we get them started just to go through the basics, but then we kind of split them up. But some of the older kids really wanted to be a part of that. So we call it ACE, Assistant Clover Educators. So they can volunteer and sign up and they can go help Miss Erin with the clovers. And I couldn't believe, like they love it. And we'll also pair the older kids up with the younger ones. We did a bake-off so they could learn judging. So some of the little ones can't spell yet, so the older kids were right there and they're like, how does it taste? And they just, it was just mind blowing. At first the clover explosion was scary, but now we're like, this is really good. And the older kids are really like stepping up and we're just kind of standing back and letting them have at it. And it's beautiful.
That's awesome. Yeah. It sounds like you guys hit the nail on the head. That's amazing. And it sounds like your older youth are really embracing the empowerment you've given them. And they do. Young people are amazing, which is one of my favorite things about work. They never cease to amaze me with their energy and they're just great. I love them. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. All right. I don't want to take up all of Joseph's time, so I'm going to move us along if that's all right. So the third item that we were talking about in that soil, we've got sparks, we've got belonging, and now developmental relationships, and they're closely linked. Thinking about we as the adults that are working with these young people and even your older youth, as Melissa was just referencing, if we can form not just relationships, but developmental relationships with these young people. And there's a couple key components to a developmental relationship. You'll see these here on this slide. The first one is show them you care. There's a common term we use in 4-H we call connection before content. Kids won't learn anything until they know you care. And adults are a lot of that way too. But connect with them first. Show them that you care. And then you can get into whatever content is on your mind. But they really do. I was a school teacher for many, many years. And I can promise you, they know when people care and they respond very positively to that. So anytime we can express care for them. The second item you see here is challenge their growth. It's great to say, oh my goodness, you're so great. I love spending time with you. But then in these projects and in some of the work we do with 4-H, we do a really good job of saying, okay, so you did a great job with that art project you submitted at the fair. What do you think you could do to improve on that or to build on that for next year? And get them thinking about how they might be able to grow and stretch a little bit. Provide them the support when they're doing that. So we don't just say, well, you need to do better next year, but instead walk alongside them and give them the support and kind of say, well, what if we look at some art books and get some ideas? Or what if we look at some of the other projects that were entered in the fair and some of the comments that the judges shared? And so providing them some support as they are starting to grow and expand their horizons a little bit. And then a lot of you have mentioned this earlier, sharing power with them, empowering those youth to take on the leadership roles as officers or as Clover guides or whatever it may be. A lot of, if any of you have camping programs in your counties, a lot of times the teens really shine as camp chaperones and counselors and things. And then expanding possibilities kind of goes along with that idea of challenging growth, but just getting them to see and think about new experiences, being open to new ideas and experiences that they might not have had before. So as adults, we can really help them stretch and grow by letting them know we care and then giving them some support as they start to try new and different things. Any questions about developmental relationships? You will have a resource in your folder that kind of gives some tips and tricks on things you could incorporate into your programs to help build on that. Joseph, if you don't mind, you can take us one more. So if we do these three things, if we think about what are the kids really interested in, sparks, if we incorporate those things to make sure they feel safe and that they belong, and if we kind of guide them, if we're the guide on the side, if you will, and form that developmental relationship, we see that youth engagement goes up. When we see this, we know the more time that young people spend in good youth development programs, the more benefit they get. The faster that flower is going to grow and bloom, the higher it's going to grow, the more petals it's going to, more blooms it's going to have, all those things. And young people are the same. The more we can get them engaged and keep them engaged, the more benefits they're going to be able to see from the program. And so if we're doing those first three things well, they want to come back and they want to be engaged and they want to dig a little deeper. So that's really what we hope to see. One more slide, Joseph, if you would. This is a tool that Anna and I developed, and basically it's a great planning tool. If you are planning out your year in a club, or as Wilhelmina mentioned, if you're just planning one activity, I can promise you, you're not going to have all the things on this chart happen in one activity. But it is good food for thought to kind of look through and go, have I taken time to find out what their sparks and interests are? And then the belonging category, there are 4 or 5 questions there. Did I welcome them? Did I greet them by name? Did they feel like they matter, that their opinions were valued in the meeting? And so this is just a really good, I use this in 2 ways. I give it to our club leaders and I encourage them to use it when they're planning their programs. And I also use it when I go visit clubs and I just look at these things and I fully understand you're not ever going to see all of these things in one club meeting or one activity. It's just not going to happen. But over the course of a year, hopefully you're going to see that these things are being incorporated throughout the program. So another great tool that we hope you might be able to tap into and use. And Joseph, we'll move on. This is an article that Anna and I wrote, and Anna developed a really cool we did some surveys at the end of State Fair, and what we were hoping to see is what's the impact of 4-H competitive teams. So when kids join the horse bowl or the dog bowl or hippology, livestock skillathon, any of those horticulture contests, they're invested heavily. They spend a lot of time in those coaching sessions with those caring adults that are developing those relationships with them. And so we used surveys after State Fair to assess what's the impact of those particular programs. And I'll spoiler alert, the impact is that kids really grow through those programs. Again, it kind of gets it. We've hit their sparks. They're very interested in those programs or they wouldn't sign up for them. We make sure they feel that they belong. They're in a smaller group setting. Usually those livestock skillathon teams or hippology or dog bowl are small settings. The adults that are working with them are their coaches. So they're walking side by side. They're challenging them to grow and get a little deeper, and they're supporting them in the process. And they're heavily, heavily engaged. So all those things that we said make a really great program, these competitive teams and events give that benefit, and it shows in the outcomes that the youth and the parents report. We collected survey data from both of those. So that link is also in your resource folder if you're interested in that. Just a couple more really quick things, and then I'll turn it over to Joseph. So, many of you mentioned that the Thrive model was something new to you. You hadn't heard that. The thriving model has been around for a couple of years in 4-H, but recently the research has pointed to we can get even greater programs if you look at this slide. It's a little busy, but all the way over to the left, you see kind of the one rectangular box that has those 4 elements in the soil of our flower: the sparks and the belonging, relationships, and engagement. So that's kind of the thriving model. The next boxes coming over toward the right refer to the Beyond Ready framework. And what we want to see with Beyond Ready is we want every one of our kids that go through 4-H, we want them to be ready for life and ready for work. And so the Beyond Ready framework asks us to think not just about those 4 elements that I talked about, but also ask yourself some of the questions here. Have I given them content that's going to help them master some skills around work? Have I challenged them to have to organize things? Have I challenged them to persevere through a tough situation? So this Beyond Ready is kind of the next level, if you will, of the 4-H thriving model of just thinking, how am I connecting this high quality youth development program to work and life skills that are going to benefit kids long after they leave my 4-H program, when they've graduated and become adults in the work world and in their lives. And Joseph, you can go one more. This is a program checklist similar to that chart that I shared with you for the thriving model. It asks many of the same questions for Thrive, and then it extends those questions of have I taught them things or exposed them to college and career opportunities? One of the big things that I try and do is tap into the research that's happening at the university. And I try and develop programs that will expose young people to things they never even knew existed. And it can be really simple. I worked with the entomology department, and the kids learned about the importance of pollinators. And from that, I literally had one young person look at me and say, Miss Amy, I can play with bugs for a living. And I said, yeah, you kind of can. Like, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And I did a forestry program, and I've actually had 4 youth that have gone into some form of forestry or forest conservation. Because again, a lot of the kids that took the forestry program weren't super interested in going to college after, because they liked being outside. They liked exploring. They didn't want a desk job. And when they took forestry, they were like, oh, wait a minute. I didn't know I could do this. So tapping into some of those careers that they don't even know might be possibilities. I think that's one of the important jobs in 4-H, is letting them know what the possibilities are. And then some of them might be sparks for them, and some of them might not be, and that's okay. So Beyond Ready just is thinking about taking it a little deeper than the thriving model. And we've got 2 more slides. So the first slide here is we love to hear from you. This is a quick little teaching effectiveness survey. We would love if you would take a moment to share your thoughts about this presentation. I promise it takes like 2 or 3 minutes. And in just a minute, Joseph will share the next slide, which is the link to, thank you, Joseph, I appreciate that, the link to the resource folder. And if you don't see something you really wanted to see or you were interested in, by all means, let Joseph know and he'll get the message to me and we'll add whatever is missing. Thank you again, Joseph, for putting the links in there. I really appreciate you guys being here tonight, and I appreciate you working with our youth. It's such an important job, and they really do need us. So thank you so much for your time. Any questions or anything before I sign off and pass it over to Joseph? All right. Well, then, thank you so much. Have a great night. Thanks for all you do. And I hope to meet some of you in person sometime.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Hopefully that got you thinking a little bit about how important our organization is and really the importance of your role if you were to volunteer within our organization. And so I wanted to go over you heard all of these information, you understand the greatness of 4-H, but how can you help? How can you become a volunteer within our organization so that you can be part of that impact for our youth? Just to quickly go over, there are 3 essential tasks that must be completed in order for you to be certified 4-H volunteers. The first step, you have to enroll as a volunteer through 4-H Online. And I'm going to go through those steps by going into 4-H Online to show you what those steps look like in a later slide. So we'll get into that. The second step or task that you must complete is all 4-H volunteers must complete a volunteer training. For those who are returning volunteers, you probably have gone through this multiple times. But for those that are coming and returning, the training that you must complete is a refresher training. And for those that are a new volunteer that have not volunteered in the past, there's a training called New Volunteer Orientation Training. In the past, we had different platforms to view these trainings, but this year, all of our training videos are located in YouTube. However, before you go searching for those trainings, please contact your local extension educator or office about which training is appropriate for you, especially for those that are returning volunteers. Our previous platform, 4-H Online, where everything was done through, we don't have the videos and the trainings uploaded onto 4-H Online. So you must go through your extension educator for you to get that link and the appropriate training. At the end of each video, whether you are a returning volunteer going through the new volunteer or the refresher training video, or a new volunteer and going through the new volunteer orientation training, there is a survey that you must complete at the end. You must complete and completely fill that survey in order for your training for the year to be marked as completed. The next thing that you have to have in order for you to be certified for a youth development volunteer is there is a background check that you must complete. A volunteer have to complete a new background check every 5 years before they have to complete another one. And this is so that we understand the safety and the risks associated with working with our youth. There are 3 different types of background checks, and the types of background checks that you must complete depends on the specific responsibilities or the roles that you play as a volunteer. Just to give you a quick glimpse, there's Tier 1 volunteer, which is for our episodic volunteers, or just to define what that is there's limited role, dates, durations to the roles and responsibility of you as a volunteer within our organization. Unlike Tier 2 and Tier 3, Tier 1 background check must be completed each time a volunteer enrolls in Maryland 4-H. Tier 2 background checks are our project leaders, club leaders, or other volunteering roles within varying capacity and responsibilities that involves our everyday general 4-H activities and programs. Tier 3 are for our specialized chaperones or overnight volunteers. There's a little more that goes into understanding the backgrounds of those volunteers. So those are the 3 types of volunteering roles that's associated with it. Again, the best resource that you have on understanding what those are and what you are responsible for, you will be able to understand those things through your local educators. I should mention, Maryland has an extension office in 23 counties, all of our counties, plus Baltimore City. So we have a office and a 4-H program within all of our counties and city. So, and those informations are available to you on our website. If you don't know where to find it, you can always email me. I will put my email address and my information on the chat for you to refer to. So 4-H Online, this is the website that you go to. The first step, the first thing that you need to do before you become a 4-H certified volunteer is to get enrolled. And the system and the platform that we utilize for you to enroll is 4-H Online. When you come here, you'll be able to make an account and then go through the enrollment process. And today, I'm going to quickly go over what that process looks like so that you have an understanding of what things that you need to look out for and things that if you have any questions that I can help answer today. So that first initial page that you saw is the login page. Once you log in after creating an account, this is the first thing that you should see. This is our test family, our cat family. And this lists out all of the members within your family who are involved with 4-H, whether that be as youth 4-H members or as volunteers. If you need to add new members, there is a blue button on the top here that you can click on in order for you to add another member to your 4-H family. Once you're here, the first thing that you notice is we have a couple different things that are going on under this program tab here. For those that are coming in as a new volunteer, or maybe you are a returning volunteer but have not started the enrollment process, the how it should look like is within this football cat. So this is what you should see, a 4-H and a blue enroll now button. You won't see the volunteer incomplete. You won't see, I apologize. I know. Is this better? Can you see better with this? Okay, thank you. So obviously, again, what you should see is a profile of your member and whether they are starting their enrollment now, so they have not started anything, or maybe they have started something. So you should see different side. For the sake of our conversation today, we're going to assume that you're coming in new and go through that process. So once you're in here, click on Enroll Now. And then you should see this message pop up. You can click on Enroll. And here, especially if you're a new volunteer, and again, for those that are returning volunteers, please contact your local extension office, especially your 4-H educators and staff, to understand where to go and see the training and what are some new things that have been added. This is so that you don't go through this whole entire process and maybe you make some mistakes. Then we have to backtrack all of that and then redo some of the things that you have already done. So by talking to your educator and staff in the local county offices, you will be able to avoid that. So you go through this process, let's assume that you've already talked to your educator and you're good to go in terms of what you need to do and how to enroll. On the bottom side of this particular page, you'll see all of the roles and responsibilities that entails on volunteering. There are different roles and these will be available to you by contacting your local extension office. So they'll have all of this information for you to review. And so once you are going through this, you will be asked to select a volunteer type at the bottom. If you are a new volunteer, whether you will be a club volunteer or a program volunteer or a project volunteer, the first thing that you need to click is new applicant. If you click on anything else, and this is the reason why I said contact your local extension office first, if you click on something else, we will have to delete your enrollment and go back and restart your application as a new applicant. So please contact your local county office before you proceed to this step. So let's assume that we're a new volunteer. You click on new applicant, and then you click on add. And this page will give you some of these information about you're acknowledging that you're a new applicant and that there are other steps that are associated with becoming a volunteer, the things that I talked about. You'll click on you acknowledge, and then you'll put your name. For this, I will just say testing. But for you, you'll put your name, and then you'll click on accept. Now, this new type of role has been populated within your profile, enrollment profile. And here, if you're a new volunteer, you just click on next. If you are a returning volunteer, you can click on the select volunteer types, and then you can click on all of the different roles and responsibilities that you would like to be part of as a volunteer within Maryland 4-H. For our sake, we'll just continue as a new applicant. There are some questions that are asked throughout, and you would click on show questions, and then the ones with the red star asterisk mark are the ones that are required for you to complete in order for you to go through the enrollment process. For this, I'm just going to click on a couple of things. And then I am going to go to the very bottom. And if you miss one of the required questions, obviously, when you won't be able to click on the next. So go scroll up to see what you missed. You'll be able to see all of that. Again, there is a box here that refers you back to the idea of having a background check and that it is required in order for you to become a certified 4-H volunteer within our organization. And it gives you all of the things that are required, the way that you will be doing it. So you'll go through all of that. Clicked on everything. And then there are documents that you might need to upload if there's certain specialized field in which you'll be participating in, such as our shooting sports instruction. I'm going to click on next. And then there's a code of conduct that you need to sign, as well as the publicly released that you will need to sign. Click on show consent, and then it'll give you our code of conduct. I won't go into the detail, but it refers to that you as volunteers are examples within our organization, and you must be presentable to everyone in all of our programs. You'll be clicking on it so that you're pledging to accept the code of conduct, and then there are specific wordings for the code of conduct and what are some of the ways that you can be more presentable. In this case, things that you should not do as adults so that it does not affect our youth participants in a negative way. So you go through that, you click on I have read and agreed, and then you will put your name. Again, I'm going to here put testing, and then there's the publicity release form that you will be able to say that you give permission or that you don't give permission. So again, I will say yes, and then I will put testing for our sake. So we've come to the conclusion of our enrollment. However, as new applicants, you will be asked to do one other thing, which is the screening. And you'll get a warning sign saying you have to complete this in order for you to complete the full enrollment and be certified. So please read through this, and then you'll go to the screening side. Again, there are red asterisks to help you understand which are some of the required questions that you would have to complete in order for you to go through the screening submission. Again, I like to emphasize that you have to contact your 4-H educator before you get to this step, because if you mess this up and you don't understand some of the questions and what it's asking, the educators and staff within your local county offices will be able to help you with this. So I am going to briefly go over and go through this and then scroll all the way down. There are legal involvement questions that you must ask, or that we need to ask. This does not mean that you will not be able to volunteer. It just means we need to get more information from you if you do click on yes. I'm going to click on no, and then here I'm just going to put testing. There are 3 references that you must submit, and that's what I am filling out at this moment. I know this can be tedious, but the reason why we do this is so that we understand that we have the best volunteers to volunteer within our organization. As Amy has alluded to, youth development is critical, but it is one of the ingredients that we have to have within our organization is a good volunteer, a great volunteer that will set a good example for our youth. But again, there are different capacities of you volunteering. So don't think as if you are less qualified than the best. Because these trainings that we do throughout the year is a way for you to develop into those great volunteers. Again, there's these contents and messages that will let you know that we will be doing some screening and background checks so that we understand that you are eligible to volunteer within the youth organization. And then you click on submit. Once that has been submitted, the state office will see the screening and approve that, and then it'll go to the county office for them to review as well. We have different screening process and phases so that we understand that the volunteers that we are working with are safe to work with within our youth programs. One other note that I would like to share is that a lot of the times 4-H online is a little clunky with iPads or tablets as well as PC, with cell phones and smartphones. Obviously, you can utilize those as the method in which you enroll and go through the 4-H online enrollment process. However, we've heard that there are some glitches that come up when you are filling everything out through those devices. Another note is oftentimes Firefox or Chrome are the ones that work best within this capacity. We don't understand why, but that is also the preferred method and the softwares that we recommend when you are filling out these enrollments. I will stop sharing now. I know I went through a lot. Again, the resource that you would like to utilize is your extension office educators and staff. They are the ones that will help you throughout this process, especially for those that if you don't have access to certain resources, then your local educators and staff will be able to help you in that regard. So please contact your local educator and staff before you go through this enrollment process. I will end the recording here. That does end my section of